Get started. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. So first of all, I want to welcome all of you to this series, Lenten series on relationships as a season of sacrificial love. And I kind of want to emphasize this point for all of you, which is when God made Adam and Eve, when God created man, he created them as a couple. And so the relationship, the marriage relationship, is the primary relationship of humans, right? It's very important. And it's important because it is not just a thing that we do because I fall in love and la la la, right? But it's because it's how it gets me to heaven. It's part of my journey towards Christ. It's my path to salvation. And it's a part of me being perfected. And so it's not just about sharing my life with someone and someone who makes me happy or someone I can make happy and stuff like that, but rather it's more about how I go to heaven. And so Lent, I think, fits in with this theme, because relationships are about sacrifice. And if you don't know that already, you should know that very quickly. Relationships are about sacrifice. Okay, so how do we build Christ-like relationships? This is the series. I'm the first one. What do healthy and godly relationships actually look like? So we'll kind of start to go through this together. So I know some of you have seen these slides before, so if you have, just bear with me. So when we think about Christ and the church, and we think, what does Christ do for the church? Think about what Christ does for us. Right? And so we start thinking about, words like, what does Christ do for us? Loves us, right? He protects us, he loves us, he died for us, he supports us, he's compassionate towards us, he's tender and merciful, he provides for us, right? This is what Christ did for the church, right? And now let's think about what we do for Christ. Let's go the other way up. Let's go up there. What do we do for Christ? Well, we love, we respect, we serve, we obey Christ. Okay? And so this is the relationship between Christ and the church. And then St. Paul comes along in Ephesians, and what does he do? He swaps the words. And he says, no, it's about husband and wife. And he places Christ and the church there. Right? Now, unfortunately, there's lots of different ways this can go wrong. Right? These are roles. These are different. Christ is not the church and church is not Christ. They're not the same. Are they equal? They're not the same. And so we can go two different ways, right? In modern America, we say, no, you're not allowed to say something like this. St. Paul was sexist. St. Paul was wrong. And men and women are the same. And I don't believe that to be true. Men and women are different in many ways, biologically, emotionally, psychologically. They're just not the same. And then the other way this can go wrong is an extreme view, right? And I'll just say it out loud, an Islamic view, right? An Arab view where men dominate women, men crush women, men beat women, men abuse women. And this is sanctioned by the culture, by the religion, right? And sometimes by our peers and say, that's just your cross. So either way, it's not balanced. So what we're going to look for today is balance. How do I be a man of God, a husband, a real husband, a Christian husband, and how do I be a woman of God? So St. John Chrysostom, and this guy is from the 4th century, mind you, or 5th century. He says, when we speak of the wife obeying the husband, we normally think of obedience in military or political terms. The husband gives orders and the wife obeying them. But while this type of obedience may be appropriate in the army, it is ridiculous in the intimate relationship of marriage. So this is St. John Chrysostom from the 5th century. He says, this isn't orders. We're not in the army here. Husbands don't give orders to wives. Now, this contradicts what some of us may have seen growing up in our own families, where the husband gave orders and the wife obeyed. And St. John Chrysostom, in the 5th century is saying, no, that's for the army, not for, and he says it would be ridiculous in the intimate relationship of marriage. The obedient wife does not wait for orders. Rather, she tries to discern her husband's needs and feelings and responds in love. When she sees her husband is weary, she encourages him to rest. When she sees him agitated, she soothes him. When he is ill, she nurses and comforts him. When he is happy and elated, she shares his joy. Yet such obedience should not be confined to the wife. The husband should be obedient in the exact same way. And so here you see St. John Chrysostom from the early 5th century saying, this isn't one way. This isn't the wife just serving the husband. This is the husband serving the wife. And actually, I'm going to continue this quote on another slide in a little bit. And so what I want this to do is to stand in stark contrast to sometimes, we were all young, and I was young at one point. I had hair and everything. And, we'd make fun. We'd say, submit, and we'd tell the women to submit. And, we'd quote the Bible, and we'd attack girls. And it was fun, right? But, this isn't the real world. And this is not the way marriage should be. So let's start with husbands and what St. Paul says. He says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. We are members of his body. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So let's start with the men. So what are men like? Are men sacrificing? Are they thoughtful? Are they selfless? Do they think of others? No. Men are selfish, stubborn. They worry about themselves, right? Just go to the gym and watch guys look at themselves in the mirror, right? There it is. Okay, so, and so it turns out men aren't very thoughtful. They aren't very sacrificial. And St. Paul goes and he gives them a very difficult command. If you go back, he says something very hard. He says, think about your wife and worry about her like you worry about yourself. That's very hard for a man to do. Men aren't really good, especially when they're young, at thinking outside of themselves. Right? I mean, how many of you, I'm sure many of you dated, how many times have you heard a woman say to a guy, and how did you think that would make me feel? And the guy goes, oh. And that's it, right? He just didn't go there. And he's like, I never thought about that part, right? And she's looking at him like, wow. He's amazing. God made amazing people, right? So St. Paul comes along and says, love your wife like your own body. And this is hard for men to do, but this is men's salvation because it's the hard thing for them to do, to go outside themselves. Because remember, marriage is a path to salvation. It's how we get saved. And you don't get saved by taking the easy road, right? Christ never said Christianity was easy. And what I want to challenge all of you to think about is all that stuff you learned in Sunday school growing up. Turn the other cheek, love your neighbor, walk 1 mile, walk 2 miles when you're asked to walk 1 mile. I want you to take all that now and apply it to marriage, because that's the real deal. That's where all that Christianity stuff you learned in Sunday school, like learn the Psalms, learn the verses, learn all the things. Now you have to actually apply it. And that's where the real work is in Christian life. It's very hard to do that. It's very easy to think about. It's actually not very complicated. It's very simple, but it's very hard to do. So I want to explore some gender roles with us here in a second about men. Let's explore some tough, confusing, and confused questions, especially in our society today. What does it mean to be a man? What do you wish your parents had taught you about becoming a man? How is a man or a gentleman different than simply being male? And what characteristic would you like your future husband to have? Okay? And these are the kinds of things we should think about. What does it mean to be a man? And there's all kinds of words out there, right? Like toxic masculinity is everywhere. Okay, everyone talks. I mean, anytime anyone's masculine, they say, oh, that's toxic. Slow down. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just masculine. Maybe that's the characteristic of a man. And then there's the other extreme, unfortunately, what many of us may have seen growing up in our homes, which is not an example of Christian men, but an example of Arab men who don't act like Christians with respect to their wives because that's what society and their parents have taught them. Okay. So, question. What are women actually looking for in a man? What are women actually looking for in a man? You guys remember the story of the Samaritan woman? How many husbands did she have? 5. And then the man she was with was what? Not her husband, so that's what? 6. And then she met the 7th. She met the 7th man. Right? She met perfection. That's who she was looking for. She tried man after man after man, and none of those men were what? Christ-like. And so sometimes women don't actually know this is what they're looking for, but they are looking for a man who is Christ-like. Someone who is compassionate and merciful and safe and thoughtful and caring and is willing to carry on his broad shoulders the burden of a home and the burden of children and the burden of a household. This is what a woman is looking for. She's looking for someone like Christ. Someone who forgives, who lets go, who moves on, and who's compassionate. So let's focus. What does this actually look like? What does it look like to protect, to love, to serve, and all of these things? All right, so I want to show you guys some videos. Unfortunately, there's going to be no sound today because, we're in the dark ages, but I'll try. St. Paul exhorts us to bear one another's burden. So St. John Chrysostom continues. He says, when she is weary, he should relieve her of her work. When she is sad, he should cherish her, holding her gently in his arms. When she is filled with good cheer, he should also share her good cheer. Thus, a good marriage is not a matter of one partner obeying the other, but of both partners obeying each other. This is what a man does. Exactly what St. John Chrysostom said. That's what a real man does. It's not about barking orders, fin al-asha, where's my dinner, where's my food, why is the house so dirty, why are the kids not fed? Feed them. Clean the house yourself. Help out. So I want to watch this video. This is kind of freaky, but this is someone's house video, and then somehow went viral. So this husband comes home on New Year's at 9:30 p.m. from work, and he comes home and he's shocked to see his wife is sick and carrying the baby. And I just want you to watch what this guy does. He covers her up. Huh? There's no sound. Oh, it's freezing? Seriously? Okay, I'll start over. Is it working now? Let me know if it freezes again. So his wife basically just collapses because she's sick. Let me know if it freezes. He covers her up, takes care of the baby, puts the baby to bed, gets a thermometer, takes care of her, cools her down, puts her to bed. Is it frozen? Okay. He cleans the house, he cooks, he takes care of everything, vacuums, and works. And then she wakes up feeling much better, and then she makes him a meal. It's a very simple video, and they exchange gifts, and it's cute. But I want you to look at how he reacted. Honestly, when I saw this video for the first time, it almost moved me to tears. I'm not kidding. Because this is the definition of a man, right there. It's not masculine and tough, and he saw her, and she collapsed, and all he did was take care of her. right? This is what real masculinity looks like. This is really what being a Christ-like man looks like, right? And it's very important that we emulate this. This is exactly, if you look at this and you read what St. John Chrysostom wrote on the slide right there, she is weary, he should relieve her of her work. She is sad, he should cherish her, holding her gently in his arms when she's filled with good cheer. I mean, it's exactly it, right? Okay. I don't know how to do this. It's going to be ugly. All right, I'll just paraphrase it. Let me see if it'll play. Can you guys read what he's saying? Is it frozen again? Just hard to read. Okay. All right, maybe I'll read it. He says, if you keep saying the words, I'm sorry, but never change your behavior, that's not taking accountability. And your partner is eventually going to say, I don't care that you're sorry. And that's not her being rude, that's her being honest. She doesn't need another sorry. I either need you to change your behavior or flat out tell me that I don't value you or this relationship enough. And that would at least be mature enough. So when you keep saying, I'm sorry, and you never change anything, then it's a problem, right? And guys are known for this, right? Girl gets upset, guy goes, okay, sorry, okay? Because that just shuts her up, right? And then she has to ask the next question, why are you sorry? And he goes, for whatever I did. Because he doesn't really know, okay? And so what I encourage you guys is not to just say sorry, but to ask questions, right? I remember when Sarah came and she did her speech, her talks, one of the things I liked about what she said was, get curious, not furious, right? So start asking a lot of questions and try to understand what the other person is saying, okay? Now, one of the worst things that guys do for each other is they all get in their locker room mode and they go out for a beer and then they rile themselves up, right? They say, man, my wife's crazy. Oh, really? Your wife's crazy too? Yeah, she's crazy. Oh, yeah, they're all crazy. And then they all agree that all women are crazy, right? That 3.5 billion people are crazy, okay? And then that allows them to do what? I mean, when someone crazy is talking, what do you do to someone crazy? You go, yeah, okay, crazy person, right? And then you just pet them on the head, right? And then you make them just go away, okay? So when you dismiss your wife and you just say, oh, women are crazy, women are just emotional, are you on your period, right? These are very dismissive words, right? And when you say something like that, basically it gives you an out to never have to think about what you actually did or why they're actually upset, right? So what I encourage you guys to do, and we'll get to the girls in a second, what I encourage you guys to do is to try to get into your wife's head, or your girlfriend's head, or your fiance's head, right? Why is that important? Because they usually have a point, and it's usually a good one. And if you don't understand the point, you're going to continue to make that same mistake over and over, and then you're going to say, oh yeah, sorry. And eventually, your wife is just going to say, I'm done. Or your girlfriend's going to say, I'm done. Okay? Now, why is this a problem? It's a problem when you've got 3 kids, you've been married 14 years, and then your wife says, I'm done. Because I'll tell you guys something, and guys, you have to listen up here. Girls, when they love you, there's a spark. Okay? And that spark, it's really hard to get. You actually can't make a spark. Right? When I counsel couples, and the girl says, he's great on paper, he's a nice guy, but I just don't feel anything. I say, don't marry him. You got to have a spark. Right? That's got to be there. There's got to be something. It's not just a resume. He goes to church, he's a deacon, he knows all the hymns, and he's a doctor. It's not enough, right? However, and this is the warning I'm going to give you guys, if you abuse that spark, she'll keep coming back to you because of the spark. And you can mess up a lot, and she'll keep coming back. But when you abuse that spark and she loses that spark, there's no man on earth that can bring it back, right? And I've seen women, and probably people at this point, 10, 15 years into marriage, and she's done. And when she's closed, you can't open that back up again. It's very, very, very hard, short of a miracle, right? So one of the ways you kill that spark in your wife is the whole sorry, not sorry. Yeah, you're just crazy. Okay, what do I got to say to get out of this? And eventually she just gets sick of it. Does it make sense? So we need to be very aware as to why we are saying sorry. Do you truly understand what she's thinking and why she's upset? It's not that she's crazy and emotional, right? Try to get into her head, try to understand. And this is based on what? Respect. If you don't respect someone, then yeah, you'll dismiss them. Yeah, you're just crazy. But if you truly respect someone, you're going to say, wait, I need to understand what's in your head. I need to understand why you're upset. I'm not seeing it. Can you please explain it to me slowly? Sock puppets, whatever you need to do to understand. Okay. There is a war a person wages within himself, engaging evil desire, curbing greed, crushing pride, stifling ambition, slaughtering lust. You fight these battles in secret, and you do not lose them, in public. It is for this that your hands are trained for battle and your fingers for war. What am I talking about? This is a relationship. Relationship is engaging myself. Every time you get in a fight with your significant other, you have to engage yourself, because this is a spiritual activity. I'll say it again. Relationships are a spiritual activity. So when I get in a fight with another person, that is a spiritual endeavor. That is a spiritual battle. And I have to now ask myself, what is broken in me that I have to fix? Because right now I'm not getting along with this other person. Something's broken in me. So the battle now, the fight goes from her to me. Right? And understanding what it is that's going on. And usually I'll give you the answer right now in case you're wondering. It's pride. You dig deep enough and it's all the same answer. Pride. St. Augustine. Okay, I wish I could show you these videos. They're so good. I spend so much time clipping them and downloading them from Instagram and putting them on this thing and then looking at them. All right, so here I'll read it to you. Every guy entering a relationship is going to get a girl who has been damaged by someone else. So this is why when you're young, you shouldn't date. Okay? Because when we're young and we date, we're stupid. And the other person's stupid. And so stupid people do stupid things, right? And so you get a bunch of teenagers out there and they're all stupiding on each other. And next thing you know, unfortunately, the ramifications of that stupidity will last the lifetime, right? So you get a girl, for example, who's dating some, 18-year-old monkey, right? And he cheats on her, right? Because some other girl DM'd him and he's like, all right. So now what? Well, this girl is now going to be traumatized by this, right? And every guy is going to pay the price for what this first 18-year-old did. Her husband is going to pay the price for the rest of his life, by the way, because that 18-year-old cheated on her. Because every time that husband goes anywhere, where are you going? Show me your location. How come you said you're going to be here, but you said, that only takes half an hour, but it took you 45 minutes to get here. Where were you those extra 15 minutes? Why did you talk to her like that? How do you know her? When did you meet her? For the rest of his life, this 18-year-old has messed up this girl. Right? And this is just what happens. So every girl and every guy has this kind of baggage. So I'll read to you. Healing a girl who hasn't been treated right is one of the toughest things a man can do. A lot of men might say it's easier to just leave, but helping someone who's been mistreated all their life and never loved correctly takes someone special. It takes a patient man who can break that mindset and show her what true love looks like, how respect feels, and what it means to treat her right. It's about being the kind of man who will help heal a heart he didn't break. That takes an incredible amount of selflessness. She'll be scared, unsure, but don't give up on her. Love her through those tough times, because she's never had that before. Make sure she knows you're truly there for her, not just when it's easy, but especially when she's going through her darkest moments. You can't heal her without listening. Communication is key. To truly heal, she needs to express her pain to someone who truly matters to her. That someone is you. Right? That someone is you. Right? So all of you guys are going to end up with a woman who's been damaged in some way. Maybe by another boyfriend, maybe by a parent, maybe by a father, by a bad relationship, whatever. Everyone has baggage. And you're all going to get to discover that baggage in the dating process. Right? Everyone's got stuff. And so what we can do is, we can say, we can just say, well, she's no good and she's all messed up, and I can just walk away. Or I can dig deep and say, I'm going to be Christ. I'm going to heal. I'm going to be a part of that process for her and love her through that. And believe me, it's hard. It's hard when you have to love someone who has that kind of damage. But that's what we're called to do as men. That's what a man does. A man doesn't walk away like that. He doesn't give up. Okay. The role of a Christian is not to condemn and judge others, regardless how evil or wrong a person is. Rather, the purpose of a Christian is to be a co-savior with Christ himself for the entire world to intercede on their behalf. This is our calling. Okay. All right. Shall I read this? Let's read you this story. This is a great story by Saint Faustina. So she's a Catholic nun. And so during meditation, it says, the sister on the kneeler next to her, so they're on kneelers during meditation, kept coughing and clearing her throat, sometimes without a break. It occurred to me that I might take another place for the time of meditation because Mass had just begun. So this woman, the nun next to her is coughing and it's bugging her, okay? And she wanted to move and go somewhere else because she couldn't concentrate on meditation. But then I thought that if I did change my place, the sister would notice this and might feel hurt that I moved away from her. So I decided to continue in prayer in my usual place and to offer this act of patience to God. Did you guys hear what she just did? So instead of moving, she said, I'm going to offer the fact that this woman keeps coughing. That's my offering to God. And I'm going to sit there in patience because I don't want to hurt her feelings by moving. Believe me, this is what marriage is like. That kind of relationship. I'm going to take this sacrifice and I'm going to offer that to God. Toward the end of the meditation, my soul was flooded with God's consolation. This is true. And this to the limit of what my heart could bear. This is true. And the Lord gave me to know that if I had moved away from that sister, I would have moved away also from those graces that flowed into my soul. It is far better to give than to receive. This is how we find joy in marriage. It's not about, we both like to rock climb and we both like to go to Paris and we both like red wine. No, that's Instagram. This is where true joy comes from. And I want you to listen to how she said it. My soul was flooded with God's consolation, and this to the limit of what my heart could bear. There is no greater joy than sacrifice for someone you love. This is the role of the man. All right. I was going to say something else about this. Forgot. Okay. All right. So another thing the guy has to do. I'll get to the girls in a second. All right. Just, we got all night. So I'm going to tell you guys something, and you're just not going to like it, but it's just true. Okay, when you get in a fight, guys apologize first. That's it. Any questions? The guy, snap start, right? Guy apologizes first. That is the guy's job. So when we say the man is the leader of the house, the man is the priest of the house, the man leads the house. How does he lead? Does he lead by, stomping his, shaking his fist and saying, I am the leader, obey me? He leads the way Christ led. And how does Christ lead? Sacrificially, on the cross, right? So this is always the guy's job. You start the cycle of love. So when you get in a fight, oh, thank you. That's exactly what I need. I just noticed that chandelier, and I've been here 700 times. Okay. So, in the marriage relationship, it's the guy's duty to die sacrificially and start the cycle of love over and over and over again. That's his job. And what's going to happen is you're both going to have your backs to each other. You're both going to say, I'm not talking to him, I'm not talking to her, right? And it's going to be a stalemate. This is going to happen 8,000 or 9,000 times in your marriage, okay, give or take. And all 8,000 or 9,000 times, when there's a stalemate, you're going to start. You're going to turn around, and you're going to give her a hug, and you say, I love you, and I want to talk. And you're going to keep doing that until you die. Does anybody have any questions? Wisdom of the Fathers. Father Thomas Hopko says, the scripture is very clear. If you want to find yourself, lose yourself. You want to fulfill yourself, empty yourself. You want to be great, be the least. You want to be first, be the last. You want to be rich, become poor. You want to become wise, be a fool. If you want to rule, become a servant. Really, orthodoxy is paradoxy. Isn't that beautiful? If you notice it, that's all over the scriptures. This is what it means to be a man. Okay. I wish I could show you. Who's seen this video? This video will solve all problems of all marriages. No, not all of them. Like 85%. Almost every couple I've ever talked to, I've had to show this video. Okay? Gosh, I wish I could play this. I know, we need the audio. Does anybody, are you recording? Is that what you're doing? Okay. Huh? The problem is I'm recording on my phone too. Do you have a phone? Okay. Okay, well. Yeah. Can I keep? All right, so it's all about the nail, right? So she says, there's a nail in my head. And here's the funny thing. I show this video to couples, right? And the women are like, why is this guy so stupid? She's just trying to express that she has pain, and why isn't he listening and sympathizing? And the guy's watching the video goes, what's wrong with this girl? Right? If we get the nail out of her head, but that's not what she's looking for, right? And so this is a very, 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 very common problem between the way men and women communicate. We communicate differently, right? So she'll tell you something like, I'm having trouble getting up in the morning, and it's and it's really hard, and I'm late for work, and my boss is yelling at me, and I've got all this pressure at work, and it's stressful, and when I wake up, I'm very groggy, and I'm rushing, okay? And what is she looking for? Girls, that really sucks. That sounds hard. Sympathize with my plight. Now, of course, the guy's listening and said, if you set your alarm 10 minutes earlier, you won't have any of these problems, right? Obviously, okay? And I'm a man, so I'm going to get a little heated right now, right? And he tells her this, and she's like, stop trying to fix it. And so she's just sharing how she feels, and she wants him to listen, right? She wants to talk to him, and she wants him to listen to her. That's all she wants, right? So guys, I want you to practice with me. Say it with me. That sounds really hard. Say it. But you got to mean it. Like, look in the eyes. Don't just fake it, all right? Don't be idiots. Say it with me. That sounds really hard. Okay. All right? Talimtu haga? Okay. All right. I'm going to skip this video, but the last thing I'll say is there's a masculinity to men that's very important, right? I believe our society is emasculating men, emasculating boys. It's not letting boys be boys. Whenever a dad roughhouses with his son, it's like, don't teach him violence. No, he's a boy. That's what boys do. Boys wrestle, and they want to wrestle with their dad, right? So as a dad, I encourage you to wrestle with your boy, and I encourage you to teach him how to be a man. And there's a bit of tough love there, right? Women are the nurturing part of the world, right? And, if you miss a deadline with your mom's like, that's okay, honey, I love you, right? Dad's like, that's not good enough. Be better, be stronger, work harder, do better, right? And both are necessary. That's why there are men and women in marriages, right? There is a masculinity to men that's important and not to be overshadowed, right? Especially in our society now where we have words like toxic masculinity, and everyone seems to say that about everybody, right? And everyone seems to be a PhD in psychology all of a sudden, diagnosing all these men with narcissism and toxic masculinity when they're just being guys, right? And that's okay. Okay. I don't know if this one's gonna... A father's job is to prepare his children for the real world. Yeah, so that's the direction. I'm going to prepare you so that when you move to the world, transit into the world, it is a smooth transition. You are not shocked. So it's not the environment of home is different than the world. We're going to create at home. Okay, what I'm going to say, geez, Louise, she's talking really fast. No, I don't know if it worked. Created home that I'm going to show you at home what the world really is like. So the father, is usually associated with tough love. He's a kind man, he's a kind man, loving man, he's a working man, but he's tough love. Tough love because he's going to tell you, love you, son, but you can be better. I love you, son, but that was wrong, and you have to take responsibility for it. Why? Because that's how the world is. And I think we can stop there, right? That's how the world is. So the husband is preparing the child for the world, and the world sucks. And your boss doesn't take crap, right? And your boss isn't going to say, oh, okay, well, you came in late for the 9th time, son. That's good. It's okay. You tried really hard. You're just going to fire him, right? And so you're going to get a son that gets fired over and over because his dad wasn't tough and said that wasn't good enough. Okay, let's go to the women, because I'm sorry I'm taking too long. The women's videos are better than the men's videos, to be honest. All right, so let's read Ephesians. Wives, submit to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their own husbands in everything. Okay, so now we kind of heard what was asked of the men. And here we have the famous submit word, right? The wives are supposed to submit to their husbands. And unfortunately, and I'll say this, I know a lot of women who are getting married who don't want this said in the wedding ceremony. Does anyone know someone like this who does not want this said in the wedding ceremony? And often there are battles with the priests or the deacons, like, don't say submit in my wedding, right? And you're like, well, St. Paul said that in Ephesians, so that's why we say it in the wedding. Because, and let's be honest, what they saw growing up was a father possibly who was abusive to the wife. And when they asked their mom, why are you taking this from dad? The mom said, well, you're supposed to submit. And that isn't submission, that's taking abuse. And so those girls grow up thinking, I am never going to submit to a man. I am never going to let a man do that to me. And so they're traumatized by this word submit. Okay? So what are women like? Do women like to be told what to do? No. Do they like to be ordered around? No. Do they like to listen to a man who's dumber than they are? No. Right? They're headstrong, stubborn, they have their way of doing things. They don't want to be told what to do. They like to control situations. They like to tell their husbands every little detail. Do this, say this, act like this, wear this, right? This is where this is going to go. Oh, honey, I think we should put the coffee maker here. Oh, that's not where it's going, for sure. I can tell you the one spot in the house it's not going is where you just suggested. Okay? So, Women don't like to be told what to do. They like to control situations. They like to control men. And so St. Paul comes along and he tells women something really, really hard. What does he say? Wives, submit to your husbands in everything. And that's really hard for a woman to do. And so it's as if St. Paul is going for the jugular for both men and women. He tells the men who only think of themselves, think of someone else. And then he tells women who are very good at actually thinking of someone else. Women are very thoughtful of other people. They're very sacrificial. They're very selfless. They're always thinking, well, if I say this, she's going to feel like that, or he's going to feel like this. They're thinking about others. So he tells them something different. He says, now you've got the sacrifice part. You think of others. That's easy. So I'm going to give you something hard. I want you to submit to that dumb guy. And they're like, all right, so what does it mean to be a woman? What do you wish your parents had taught you about becoming a woman? How is being a woman different than being female? And what characteristics would you like your future wife to have? So let's question. What are men actually looking for in a woman? Answer, and some men may actually not realize this, they're looking for the new Eve. They're looking for tenderness. They're looking for compassion. They're looking for company. They're looking for respect. This is what men are looking for. They don't want to be married to another man. They want someone who's tender. Well, not everybody, you know what I'm saying. That was unnecessary. Moving right along. All right, so now what does this actually look like? The wife is called to love, respect, serve, obey. Remember this, Christ and the church. Oh man, this is such a good video. All right, let's play it again. This idea of I don't need a man, I don't need him, I don't need you. And I liked it when he flipped it and he said, what if I was walking around telling my woman, I don't need you? She wouldn't be happy, right? And I liked his openness when he said, I want to say, I need my woman. I want her around. I don't want to be without her, right? That sounds very nice, right? So sometimes what I'm saying is, we hear a lot of, and I'll just say, ultra-feminist ideology. And some of it doesn't come from a good place, right? Because we're supposed to sacrifice in a marriage. We're supposed to crucify ourselves, but we also crucify self-sufficiency, right? You're not supposed to be self-sufficient in a marriage. It's not enough to say, I'm good. I have to depend on the other person. I have to learn how to depend on the other person. And not, as he says, independent my way into a lonely life. And I see women make this mistake all the time. They have such a chip on their shoulder and they're so agitated and angry and like, I don't need you and I don't want to, and really what they're trying to do is protect themselves, and I get that. And they don't want to seem desperate, and they don't want to seem like I'm just going to let any man, let him think that I'm desperate and I really need him. And okay, but slow down a little bit, because sometimes the rhetoric that's out there in the world is not conducive, right? Like I said, what a man's really looking for is tenderness. He's looking for someone who says, hey, I really like you. Right? Because a guy also is scared of rejection. This is a good one too. Okay, I'll just read it. So we tried this. Oh, sorry. Okay.
If you switch your iPad and then you play it.
I think if you hit iPad, last time we did it, it turned off.
Can I try real quick?
Okay, sure. Oh.
It's okay. We'll just turn it back on. Sorry.
Okay, that works. Okay, but now it's off. I'll do it. Yeah, no, we tried. Mary and I tried that earlier. Okay, now it's not working. The basic. Okay, there it goes.
There we go.
All right. Okay. There's something to men needing to be respected in their homes. Now, and it can't be conditional. It can't be, he'll get respected when he earns my respect or when he does something respectful, because that's conditional. And if we flipped it like conditional love, that's a problem. Now here's the insight that the reason I clipped this video is the insight this woman has, right? Because she said something at the very end that sealed it. She said, did you ever notice that sometimes your husband at home isn't happy, he's kind of grumpy, he's kind of whatever, and then he goes to work and he thrives. And he goes with his friends and he thrives. And he's funny and he's laughing and he's joking and he's this other person. And then you're like, how come he's not like that at home? How come a lot of booze at home? Well, it's because I get respect out there. So I'm going to go where I get respected. Now you can say, oh, there goes that man. He's just an egotistical pig. He's a little man. He's a monkey. He's a whatever. He's just going where people respect him. Yeah, okay. But that's the way we're built, right? And so a lot of women learn this lesson too late. Remember how I told you a woman can turn off? A man can turn off too. And lots of men, after a while of getting not respected and not dignified at the house and just being bullied all the time, they just kind of say, you know what, I'm just done. And then I think I'm going to work late. Yeah, I got to work late again, honey. Yeah, I think I'm going to go hang out with the guys afterwards. Yeah, I think I'm going to go play basketball. Right? And next thing you know, slowly but surely you lose him. Right? Because he goes out and he finds a place where he is respected. Right? And so you may have won the battle, but you lost the war. You lost the guy. You lost him for the long term. Right? And so you may say, I don't want to feed his ego, and I need to, men have big egos and we just have to keep them down. And a lot of women think that. My job is to keep my man down, keep him humble, and break him. Right? Okay, yeah, that's probably a little true. But don't do it at the cost of giving him his dignity and his respect, because he'll just go find it somewhere else. Men need respect, not conditional respect. This Elder Ephraim writes this great quote. He says, sometimes we find ourselves at odds with another person, and we stubbornly insist he is at fault. He's the one who became angry. He's the one who spoke to me rudely. He must humble himself, not me. If he had spoken to me calmly and addressed me with respect, I would have been patient and would not have been offended. Hence, he is to blame. And he writes, behold the passion of egotism. We must oppose such thoughts by responding, no. If I did not have an ego, I would not be bothered. Hence, I am to blame. My brother is not at fault. If I had humility, I would take this opportunity to gain a crown, and I would view this person as Jesus' cauterizing instrument. You guys know what a cauterizing instrument is? Burns, right? Like a vein and stuff. He is cauterizing my passion so I can become healthy. He is helping me now. He is my benefactor. I must embrace him, love him, and pray for him because he actually did me a favor by revealing my sickness. Okay. All right, I'll move on. How you perceive your husband matters. A lot of women over time lose respect for their husbands. Okay? Why? Because when you're dating and you're engaged and everything's la, right? Guy looks great and he's this and he's all this stuff. And then as time passes, you realize men suck. Right? I actually have a habit I do every single wedding I've been to. This is actually kind of fun. I go up to the bride at some point during during the reception, and I say, by the way, your husband, he's a pig. Because all men are pigs. And she goes, no, he's not. He's the best. He's great. He's blah, blah, blah. And I am now 4 for 4. 2 years later, the woman comes up to me and says, do you remember what you said to me at my reception? You were right. He is a pig. And I was just trying to set expectations. Okay? So, what am I talking about? Okay, so what she said is really important here, right? Because once you start to view him this way, and you address him thinking he's lesser, he's not as good as you are, he's an idiot, he's not smart, and he sees it in your eyes, She said something very insightful. Does anyone remember what she said? It hits all of his emotional insecurities, right? Because one of that toxic masculinity things that guys do is being competitive, right? Guys are competitive. We want to win, we don't like to lose, right? Now, a lot of women will see that competitiveness and say, oh, there goes those stupid men just being competitive and playing basketball and each one wants to win. But you know what that competitiveness does in us? It makes us want to make the relationship work because we don't want to lose. That competitiveness is why we keep coming back and trying to make women happy. What can I do to make you happy? Because I want to not lose this. And one of the biggest fears a man has at a relationship is being inadequate, not being able to make her happy. And when she just looks at him like, you're so stupid, then all his fears are realized. And then he may just give up. Like, I'm done. She doesn't respect me. And so don't ever fall into that thing. And so she says something really insightful. When you're ready to see him the way Christ sees him, then you talk to him. And if you're not in that place, don't talk to him. Don't give him some disgusting look like, oh, I don't want to look at your face. That will hurt him and affect your marriage more than you can possibly imagine. That one will last. And he'll remember it a year, 10, 15 years later and say, remember when you said that to me? Remember when you said you don't want to be with me anymore and we were married? And she goes, yeah, but I was really upset. Too late. You said it. And you don't get to take back words like that, ever. I'll skip that one. Okay, this one's really good. Okay, and then, isn't that such a good video? This is like the most common fight ever, right? How come I have to tell you? Why do I have to tell you I want flowers? How come I have to tell you to take me out? Well, I want you to do it. If I tell you, then you're not really doing it for me. You're doing it because I told you and it's not coming from your heart, right? All of these things, okay? And what I want to encourage the girls to do is communicate, communicate, communicate. No, the guy does not need to know what you want before you want it. That's not true. He shouldn't be able to read your mind. Not true. Right? He shouldn't, if you tell him, it doesn't mean, well, now it's lost all its value because it's not spontaneous and it didn't come from his heart. Not true. Right? Allow yourself to communicate. And you know how many times you're going to have to do it? Thousands. Get ready. It's a long haul. You're going to be married 50 years and you'll die. Right? So you're going to do this thousands of times. And after thousands, he's still not going to remember. And then you'll do it 1,001. And then you'll just keep going. And that's okay. Suck it up, buttercup. Okay? All right. This one's good. This is just an angry black woman. And she rips into you guys. This one's pretty good. This is very true. Right? The controlling spirit. This is a thing, right? Controlling your husband, it's just more efficient. If he just listened to what I said and he just did it the way I said it, it would just be better, right? And really what that's saying is I want you to do it my way and I don't really care about your way because your way is dumb. And this is a very common problem, right? And what she's telling women to do is challenge themselves and say, and she kept saying, your controlling spirit and point it at you, right? And what it will do is build up a lot of resentment on your part, right? She's saying, learn to work with the other person. They have rights. They have an opinion. They can say what they think. And it's not all going to be your way. Make sense? All right. Okay, I'll skip that one. Okay. All right. So we're done. All right. In summary, men need to be men. So I like this. Mom turned babies into boys, while dads who turned them into men. Men, gentlemen, when you want to say hi to someone, you stand up, shake their hands, and make eye contact. Men, open the door for a woman. I know nowadays there's some women like, I don't need you to open the door for me. I can open my own door. No, open the door. Ignore her. Or just slam it in her face. Okay. In Philly. Help the elderly. When you walk with a woman, man walks on the street side, the more dangerous side. You should be the man who protects, provides, and presides. You're the leader to the family. Build lots of skills so your family can rely on you. Learn how to change a tire. If you see someone in distress, will you go toward that, or will you grab your iPhone and take a video and post it on TikTok? The man's job is to engage danger for his family. And then I wanted to add saying we instead of you. This will save you guys a lot of headache. So when you say, what you did, don't say what you did. Say what we did. And recognizing the treasure of a girl's secrets. When a woman opens up to you with her secret life, what's going on inside her, that's very precious. That does not happen easily. When a girl opens up and tells you what's going on inside her, that's something she shares with very, very few people, and only when she considers you to be a safe place. Don't ever throw that away. Don't ever trample on that. Don't ever belittle that. That's a big thing. In summary, women need to be women. Being a lady is more than your appearance. You're more than that. Your identity is in Christ. A lady should be respectful, loving, kind, and not materialistic. Treat everyone with respect and humility. Understanding that personal grooming and hygiene are forms of self-respect. Fashion choices should reflect individuality while maintaining a sense of modesty and sophistication. It's not okay to say, I really like, tramp-looking clothing. It just is very comfortable. Is that tramp not a word anymore? I was going to say, hoochie mama. What's the word I'm supposed to use here? Clothing that is inappropriate. And you say, well, it's very comfortable and I just like it. That's not enough. Because you have to think about what that does to a man. And you have to think about your brother in Christ and how that affects them. Respect men. Hard to do, I know, but try. A lady values education and strives to continuously grow her knowledge and skills as a balance of inner strength, outer elegance, and a deep commitment to treating others well. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions on the talk? Any thoughts? If you guys want to take some time to think about your questions, I just wanted to tell you, so that's the end of the talk. I just wanted to